It doesn't look like I'm going to be fighting with this thing this time.
Oh, try and wiggle it.
I'm not touching this thing.
Go ahead. Yeah, it's firm.
Whoa.
I tightened her up for you.
Thank you. I could hear it. And there's a couple points in the episode where I can hear myself.
Yeah.
Like,
Welcome to I'd Buy That for $1, a podcast about inexpensive, common, and underappreciated records that are waiting to be rediscovered. I'm your host, Sean Hartman, and I wake to sleep, and taking my waking slow, I learn by going where I have to go.
That was Seussian.
Yeah, it's poetry. You guys ever just read poetry?
No.
You guys ever just read a fucking book?
No.
yeah. That's why we like music, because it doesn't involve reading.
I don't even like movies with subtitles.
You mean I have to read?
Well, I'm co-host Jeremy Ruggles, and I am co-investing in a new business. 100% organic counterweights for marine vessels. We're going to call them Yacht Rocks.
I truly
That's
did
brilliant.
not know where you were going with that, but A+.
Thank you.
Do you need any investors? Because I'm 100% behind this concept.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna need a few strong people to help me lift these rocks.
I'm there.
I'm there too. And I am co-host Peter Cook, and I had a discussion with 2007 Peter Cook, 27-year-old Peter Cook, who was listening to a lot of challenging, obscure music, and he is not happy with what 41-year-old Peter Cook has become, listening to Michael Frank's The Art of Tea, but you know what? Fuck him.
Whoa.
This record rips.
True. And this record is maybe a bit how do I want to put it? Polarizing? It's more polarizing than you might anticipate, but we'll get to that later.
It's underappreciated in certain audiences. He's got plenty of fans out there, but some people just think that he's terrible, and we're about to maybe change some minds, maybe not. We'll see. Agreed.
I want to start with what I think is either the most grabbing of the songs or maybe second most. It's probably my favorite, though. St. Elmo's Fire.
Definitely my favorite on this record. Such a good track.
It's up there with, I like Mr. Blue a lot, too. Those two kind of fight for the top spot for me.
I like Mr. Blue all right, but I can definitely understand why that's your jam.
So this is Michael Frank's The Art of Tea, Side A, Track 4. What year is this?
1976.
And this song is again called
St. Elmo's Fire.
Correct. All right, let's get into it.
When I start to care, then I find there is no one there, but I think of you, and I know we are something new. We get high and high, crazy blue, like St. Elmo's fire, love so sharp and flat that it's hard to know just where you're at. But now I know I want you, I want you to be my woman. Now I know I want you, I want you to be my woman. Got the When the moon's full, I howl at it, but it's mostly fake. I'm in love with the love we make. We get higher and high, crazy blue, like St. Elmo's fire. Love so sharp and flat that it's hard to know just where you're at. Now I know I want you to be my woman. Now I know I want you to be my woman.
Damn, that is some smooth, soulful sound right there.
Smooth, soulful, jazzy.
Yeah.
Does it remind you of any I'd Buy That alum?
I was trying to think of who his voice reminds me of, and I haven't been able to pinpoint it yet. Who did you have in mind? Maybe a little Kenny Rankin?
Little Kenny Rankin. Sort of the voice, because they're both soft, but more so the like overall thing going on. That and the Kenny Loggins that we did, I thought was in a similar vein.
Yeah, that one has a really similar mix of folk and jazz. And I think Joe Sample's keyboards on this record remind me a lot of Bob James, so there's some definite similarities on those albums.
An artist that we have not covered yet, but I'm sure we will at some point, that the voice reminds me a little bit of, is Al Stewart.
Okay.
Year of the Cat.
Yeah. I could see that, I guess. That's not what came to mind for me, but I could see it.
It could also just be that period, that era, production, and...
Yeah, I think that would have been around the same time.
Yeah, like almost pretty close. Yeah. But yeah, this is, I wasn't really familiar with this album going in, but I was familiar with Michael Franks. Sean, I think that his album Sleeping Gypsy is one that we found doing the record project when we worked at the record store together about 10 years ago.
That very well could be. I don't remember that record specifically during all of that. What got me into Michael Franks was actually just a few years ago, shortly after quitting the record store and doing some in-person appointment-only record sales out of my garage in Kalamazoo. Someone came out and was buying records and just bought a whole bunch of Michael Franks and was really stoked about it. And everything else he bought I was familiar with, so I kind of made a mental note that I had to check it out. And, you know, I still have very mixed feelings about Michael Franks, because some of those songs, like St. Elmo's Fire, are just incredible. Like, top-tier, smooth jazz. And then some of the songs are just so gratingly goofy and cheesy that I just can't do it. It like makes me angry listening to some of them.
Yeah, some of the raunch on some of them is like too much.
Yeah, there's some dated language on some of the stuff too.
There's some dated language, and also so much of this just sounds like the perspective of someone who's never had a real challenge in his entire life. Like, it just sounds like too nice, too sterile, like coming from a place of happiness and like easy living that I can't fully understand, and kind of like makes me mad to listen to sometimes. I don't know if I'm the only one that had these thoughts.
That Michael Franks privilege.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you're not wrong. I guess I could jump right in here and say that he was born in La Jolla, California.
Did you happen to look up any other notable people from that place?
No, but I know like Mitt Romney and his car elevator is in La Jolla, and there's like a bunch of famous actors and sports people with giant mansions in La Jolla. It's a very well-off area. Yeah,
I looked it up. It's like a average income of about $200,000. Yeah, Mitt Romney's $12 million vacation home is there. It was also the boyhood home of Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah.
like San Diego is a wealthy city, and it is like the separated wealthy area off of San Diego.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you ever visit there when you lived in San Diego?
Yeah, they have, this is kind of hilarious. They have something called the Children's Pool in La Jolla, which is, they built this little cove so that the rich people's kids could swim in the ocean and not have the waves hit them. And naturally, it was the perfect environment for seals having babies and their young ones. So these protected seals moved into the children's pool, and now it's just like where you go to watch seals because nobody's allowed down there because they're protected.
Wow.
I love that.
Yeah, me too.
So Michael Franks is somebody who grew up not having to deal with the adverse conditions of a lake or of an ocean.
Yeah, that feels like a good metaphor there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
All right, you tell people when he was born, and then I'll tell you what other celebrity was born on that day.
Oh, September 18th, 1944.
The same birthday, not the same year, as Jason Sudeikis.
Oh, Ted Lasso.
Yep. There you go. All right, continue the bio.
I'm sure that reference won't date itself as time goes on.
Yeah, people listening in 2048
are going to be like, oh, yes, that classic television program, Ted Lasso.
Well, I feel like it's fitting, though, because Ted Lasso is kind of the modern archetypal dad character, and we're talking about the, archetypal smooth jazz dad. So there's some comparisons. It makes sense.
Wow, you've really thought about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. All right. Well, Michael Franks, as mentioned, born in 1944. He was the oldest of 3 siblings. He had 2 younger sisters. And his musical journey began at age 14 when he bought a $30 guitar from a department store. And the guitar included with it was 6 private lessons. And those 6 private lessons were the entirety of Michael Franks' music education. He was self-taught after that point.
Yeah, I was very surprised to learn that. I did not think that this was a self-taught guy. I figured it was a music school guy, but
yeah, there's a level of sophistication, that doesn't feel self-taught.
Yeah, it's not exactly like thrashing about punk or something.
Yeah, or even people who are self-taught that make complex music. It's often very idiosyncratic, and like this falls in line with like jazz vibes.
Yeah.
Which you nowadays at least imagine as like people who've gone through a lot of training.
Yeah. This teacher was really into major 7th chords.
Yeah. Like, we only got 6 lessons, son. Here's the major 7 chords. So in high school, he began strumming and singing some folk rock. And he also began getting down with Michigan native poet Theodore Rutke.
Mm-hmm. That's who I quoted for my intro.
Oh, okay. So he's from Saginaw, Michigan. And that informed his later lyrical sophistication. He started using kind of near rhymes and using like shifting meters within the lines. So it inspired him to be less straight ahead when it comes to lyrical content. And what continued that was his study at UCLA, where he studied comparative literature. And this is also the time he was getting into jazz music and listening to a lot of jazz. After he graduated UCLA with a bachelor's, he started teaching at various universities. And while he was teaching, he began his music career in earnest, composing for films. And he wrote an anti-war musical called Anthems in E-flat. So he wasn't recording an album or anything yet, but he was starting to put music out there into the world whilst he was teaching literature at a bunch of universities.
Are you going to mention who the star of his Anthems in E-flat musical was?
Oh, I didn't write it down. I'm so horrible with actors and actresses, so
Well, it just so happened to be a pre-Star Wars Mark Hamill while he was in high school.
Okay.
Yeah, he would have been very young at that point. It was like 68 or so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's about right.
So Mark Hamill would have been 16, 17 probably.
Yeah. So I would just like to point out that this is now the second Brazilian music-inspired artist who gave work to a leading actor from Star Wars before Star Wars.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I know there was a bunch of famous names in the movies he was doing soundtrack work for as well, but I didn't write any of them down because, wow, I don't care.
What was the Harrison Ford connection? Wasn't that who the other Star Wars person was?
Sergio Mendes hired him to build a recording studio for him.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
So let's rip into another song here. Let's do my second most favorite one, Mr. Blue.
Not Mr. Blue Sky
No.
by ELO.
No. Also a good song, but not on this album.
So we're talking a little bit of Side B, track 4.
We touched like watercolor fonts in landscapes painted by Cezanne, like lovers floating, painted by Chagall. But you and I were you, I then. We thought the rush would never end. We thought the sky would never fall. We lived, we loved, we laughed, we cried. We'll never die. And now I think of you and I change right into Mr. Blue. We lived, we loved, we laughed, we cried. We'll never die. Now I think of you and I change right into.
I'd read that a lot of Michael Franks' early influences were more in the kind of big band, Tin Pan Alley, Great American Songbook, and swing music fields. And I feel like that track is a pretty good example of some of those early influences showing in his music.
Yeah, there's less folk in that one. It's a little more just vocal jazz, and you really hear his, like, the timing of the words and everything, how it kind of leans jazzy. He doesn't have like a crazy range, but he has like a nice palette within in the jazzy feel, I would say.
Yeah, as much as these songs do all fit well together, there's a pretty good variety of smoothness.
True.
If you had handed me the lyric sheet for that song without me hearing the music, the singing, and asked me to name what songwriter had written that song, I would have guessed Jonathan Richman.
Oh yeah, because he's name dropping obscure painters.
Yeah. Cezanne, Chagall.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, wait, these sound like Jonathan Richman lyrics.
Yeah, there's definitely, I mean, they're both kind of booky big word, smart guy lyrics. So
Yeah, if he had just spelled girlfriend funny in there, then it would have been the exact same thing.
true.
Good song, though. Good song.
Yeah, nice and mellow.
Well, it's kind of a little bit like the his label head of Reprise Records, Mr. Frank Sinatra.
True. This was a Reprise Records release. Oh, that was all those R's in a row for you. But let's not skip his secret first album. Michael Franks released his eponymous first record in 1973. And it's kind of a lost album in a way, because it was put out on the Brute record label, which it turns out after looking it up is in fact the budget cologne company. They had a label for a few years.
I just thought it was Frank's more honest label.
No, it's like the cologne company, and I was looking through some of their releases, and I hadn't heard of like any of the people putting stuff out on that label. So
Interesting.
There's a few names. There's like a Swamp Dog 45, Wayne Fontana and the Mindbenders.
yeah, I don't know what that is.
There's also a Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee 7-inch, which
Oh, yeah.
is also
Yeah, I
part
know
of
Sonny
Michael
Terry.
Franks' early story. Did you catch that?
Yeah, they made a song of his. Or they
Well,
recorded a song of
He
his.
wrote a few songs for them, and then he's on one of their records playing guitar and banjo.
Oh, I didn't know he played on their record.
Yeah, I don't think like all the tracks, but like a few of them. So yeah, he like was kind of tight with those guys somehow.
Nice. Well, not a ton of those were pressed, and I think it's like a valuable record now if you get the original, though it was re-released a decade later under the name Previously Unavailable.
Clever.
But it was just a re-release of that first album.
Yeah, you imagine all the diehard Michael Franks are like, man, what a ripoff. I already have this one.
Yeah. Diluting the value of my Michael Franks record.
Yeah. I'm sure that was said a lot.
Yeah. So he, got some attention and was signed to Warner Brothers. And that's how he ended up on the Reprise label,
Subsidiary.
a subsidiary of Warner Bros. And a bunch of his records after this all came out on Warner Bros. Proper.
Hmm.
So I had read a little story of his audition for Warner Brothers. He was working on a soundtrack to a film that I'm assuming Warner Brothers was releasing. So there was executives on the set, and he wanted to audition but didn't have a demo on him. So he just like straight up played them a few songs on the set of this movie. And he said he started out by playing some of his more normal songs, thinking those would be the ones that they wanted. But then once he played Eggplant and Popsicle Toes, the executives were like, hell yeah, we're going to sign you. Those were literally the songs that got him the record deal.
Wow.
Yeah, I noticed that, Popsicle Toes is like the closest to a hit. It was like a minor hit, and I noticed you did not include that one in the songs we're going to be hearing today.
Yeah. It's the only song of his that broke the Billboard 100.
Yeah.
It was number
I think 43.
43,
Yeah.
on the charts. But I don't like that song. I'm going to play Eggplant last just because we play less of the last song, and I don't want to subject people
To too much of it.
to the entirety of Eggplant.
Yeah, but they need to
But-
know what they're getting into with this record.
Yeah, it would be dishonest if we
Right.
didn't.
Yeah.
We got to give them the total Franks package here.
I will say the song Eggplant sent me into a bit of a internet rabbit hole trying to track down the origins of the eggplant emoji, which is parallelly used for innuendo in the exact same way Michael Franks is using it for innuendo in this song.
Yeah.
So I was like, is there some
Connection.
through line or
Yeah.
connection there?
Is Michael Franks getting royalties off of this emoji? What's going on?
But what I came to learn is that the eggplant emoji originated in Japan, where it is the only reason it was in their emoji set is that it's considered lucky in Japan to dream of Mount Fuji, a falcon, and an eggplant on the first night of the new year.
Wow.
So apparently that's a big enough thing that people wanted to, you know, have an eggplant emoji to include to talk about this superstition.
Yeah.
I'm glad to know that there's a valid reason for that emoji existing.
Well, yeah, they made it for that, and then Google was like, hey, Japanese telecoms, we want to do emojis. Can we just use like your set of emojis? And they're like, yeah, cool, give us a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when Americans see the eggplant one, it just becomes a sexual thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We elevated it, I would say.
Yeah.
Elevate the eggplant.
Yeah.
And I could not find a through line back to Michael Franks from there. I'm like, did he just like, was he the first? And like, perhaps, you know, it bubbled back up later or something. But a little more research takes us back to Mesopotamia.
I'm starting to think we're getting into a 99% invisible episode here or something.
I'll wrap it up quick here, but there's, you know, evidence going back to like Mesopotamia of people using gardens and fruit as innuendo for various sexual things. And the earliest direct eggplant usage I found was Giovanni de Udine had a very sexual painting of an eggplant in 1518.
You did your research here.
Yeah, that's where I put a lot of my effort, was into getting to the bottom of this eggplant thing. But we'll play the eggplant song last,
Yeah.
so that you don't have to hear it all. Unless you're a pervert, go find it and you can listen to the whole thing.
Now, I want your best guess on the percentage of Michael Franks fans that realized that song and many, many other Michael Franks songs are in fact sexual innuendos.
Oh, it feels so obvious to me, but maybe I'm just a pervert.
Yeah.
You're the one that put a lot of research into the eggplant emoji.
You're not wrong.
You're obviously the expert in this field, so just give me your best ballpark guess on this percentage here.
Yeah.
15%.
15%, understand? That makes sense.
And now, Jeremy, you and all of our listeners have an interesting talking point to bring up when the conversation is at a lull.
Yeah, you'll be cool at parties with that. Well, another huge thing with this record, dude gets signed to Warner Brothers, and they're like, hey, why don't you just have access to all our big guns?
Yeah. How about we just give you the best of the best for studio players?
Yeah. So, do you want to name some names, Sean? You want me to go down the list?
Well, first, I'd just like to remind people of my active theory that if there are more than one member of the Crusaders on a record, it cannot be bad. And there's what, 3 Crusaders on this album? So
Yeah. It might have been all 3 of the Crusaders at the point that this was made.
yeah, and the drummer from the Crusaders, I feel like, didn't do nearly as much session work as the other guys. So we got Joe Sample on keyboards, Larry Carlton on guitar, and Wilton Felder on bass. It's practically the same backing band that you hear on like half of Steely Dan's songs.
Yeah. And a lot of other music too, really.
Yeah. Yeah, so it has the Crusaders as kind of the core. Then for saxophone, you have both Michael Brecker and David Sanborn,
Yeah.
2 like iconic sax players.
Easily the 2 most iconic guys for smooth jazz of this era.
Yeah. I put together, instead of trying to like name a list of, you know, everything Michael Brecker was on, these are people that Michael Brecker was on their album in the year this was released, 1976. So just in that year, he's on Elton John, Laura Nyro, George Benson, James Taylor, Don Cherry, Ringo Starr, Bette Midler, and others.
And honestly, if you combine each of those artists you just named, you'd probably come up with Michael Franks.
What?
That list of
Like
artists
if you
just
combined
named.
all their music.
Yeah, like all of those different
He's
things
saying
you
it.
named, kind of Michael Franks is like the middle point of that.
I see where you're going there.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Getting too far ahead of you, I'm sorry. Take about 10% off the top.
Yeah, there we go. David Sanborn's on everything as well. He was on Bowie Records, Carly Simon, Bob James, The Boss, Aretha Franklin, so on, so on, so on. Forever and ever and ever. You also got Larry Bunker on vibraphone. He did a lot of stuff with Bill Evans Trio. Also jammed with Tim Buckley, Stan Getz, Natalie Cole, Kenny Rogers, Donna Summer. Another huge name that's been all over the place. On drums, John Guerin, who played with Joni Mitchell, someone Sean really digs, J.D. Souther,
Mm-hmm.
Joan Baez, Graham Parsons, who Peter really digs,
Oh, yeah.
and me, and Sean probably. Sarah Vaughan, and I'd buy that alum Melanie.
He was also on a couple Kenny Rankin records. He was on Like
Oh.
a Seed.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
And finally, you got Jerry Steinholtz on congos. You know, he just played with people like Diana Ross and Gladys Knight and, just a few, famous people. And for the beautiful picture of Michael Franks on the album cover here,
Yeah.
sitting cross-legged, looking super normie core, that was done by Ed Thrasher,
Oh, yeah.
who did a lot of iconic album covers. He worked with Jimi Hendrix, the Doobie Brothers, Van Morrison, Grateful Dead, the Beach Boys. So it was star-studded affair, this thing.
Star-studded affair to make the art of tea.
So let me launch us into yet another jam. I want to do I Don't Know Why I'm So Happy I'm Sad, because that's a title of a song that Jeremy's going to pick.
Yeah. Sounds like a song that you would write.
Yeah, maybe that one. And like if he had a song called Mr. Blue on here, you'd probably pick that one.
Yeah, and I did. I picked them both.
If you had a song about an eggplant,
Yeah.
probably do a ton of research about that.
Yeah. A song about getting high. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here is I Don't Know Why I'm So Happy I'm Sad.
I don't know why I'm so happy I'm sad. I'm in trouble, seeing double. I have been hurting for someone so long. Is it you? Is it you? We're like a scene from the African Queen. We're so slam bang, we're so yin yang. You had my heart followed, then you locked it and swallowed the key. I came unglued the night I met you. I felt my life divide by two. You'd think by now I would know better. Love is always blue. laissez-faire and your long chestnut hair drive me crazy.
I saw a lot of reviews of Michael Frank's music and this album in particular where they talked about how his vocal style was what really set him apart and made him completely unique amongst his peers. And only a few kind of correctly pointed out that a lot of this was bossa nova influence. If you listen to a lot of the singers in that field, especially like, about 10 years before this, it's a very laid back kind of airy vocal style. And I feel like he took that and adopted it perfectly to this kind of smooth jazz style. Also on his follow-up record to the Sleeping Gypsy, you can hear a lot more of the bossa nova influence going on. But I mean, particularly if you listen to artists like Astrud Gilberto or Antonio Carlos Jobim, guys that he was very influenced by, you'll definitely hear that.
Yeah, Stan Getz as well was a big influence for him.
Yeah, the Getz Gilberto record. And like cool jazz as well, like Dave Brubeck or I'd Buy That alum Wes Montgomery. I also saw that his parents listened to a lot of Peggy Lee when he was a kid.
Yeah. And other swing. That's where a lot of the swing vibes came from, apparently.
Yeah.
Something I found quite interesting, to go back to his polarizing elements. I read this, I don't even know what to call it. It was like a news article, but it really just seemed like an apology from a guy who did programming for a smooth jazz radio station. And he gets into, Michael Franks should be like the poster boy for smooth jazz. He's a legacy act by the time all these smooth jazz stations start popping up in the 80s. And his music in the 80s started to bend more in that direction. But you don't actually hear Michael Franks on those stations very often. And that's because he playtests horribly with the audiences that listen to smooth jazz stations. He was in like the bottom 10% of things they would play test. So he didn't get much airtime because those were infamously corporate stations that would just play things by the numbers.
Interesting.
We would be remiss to not mention that he also was, I don't know what the right word is, a figure in the Quiet Storm radio format, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely read that he was considered like an architect of that sound. And
okay,
maybe he wasn't featured on the smooth jazz radio of the 80s, but when the Quiet Storm radio show started in DC just a few years after this, actually, I think it was like 77 when it started, the format was named after the Smokey Robinson album from 1975, Quiet Storm. But Michael Franks, in a lot of ways, was kind of that perfect sound and got some play on there.
Yeah, and definitely leaned into the innuendo aspects and the jazzy, sophisticated parts. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's like everything in that world wrapped into one, I feel like.
And also one of the few white artists that is notable in the Quiet Storm genre. It's pretty much just like him and Bobby Caldwell.
That tracks.
So is it time for me to debut a new segment on I'd Buy That for $1?
Oh, a new segment?
A hot new
you didn't
segment.
Even tell us.
I've got a new one, boys. I think it's going to be a hit. This new segment is called Sean Reed's All Caps User Reviews.
Oh, boy. Yeah, let's hear it.
All right, I got 3 really good, genuine, online sourced user reviews. You ready? So because these are all caps, I kind of struggled to really get the tone right, but I'm going to do my best. So here goes.
Well, just this means for you, for listeners out there, these are written in all capital letters.
Yes.
Reviews, just user reviews online.
Yes. So
turn your dials up while he reads these, and then you can turn it back down when he's done.
to get the full effect.
Okay, review number 1. Michael Franks' album is truly amazing. I used to own his jazzy music, and lyrics are so mellow from this jazzy fellow, and I truly miss hearing them all. Mr. Blue, Popsicle Toes, Night Movies, The Lady, Wants to Know, I Don't Know Why I'm So Happy, But Sad. Just to name a few, yes, he's in a class act of his own too, and his music is great to have around.
Are these all caps, no punctuation?
Yeah, and like very weird line breaks, and like sometimes there's commas, but like, you know, it's a struggle to really figure out how to read these properly, but I'm doing my best.
Oh, that one, you represented that perfectly.
Cool.
Because I did see that one beforehand.
Nice.
You did show us these reviews, you just didn't tell us.
All right, well, these next two you guys haven't seen, so get ready.
Okay.
All right. Now, this is a very hot, jazzy classic hit from another great jazz recording artist, Michael Franks with Eggplant. I do believe it was the late 70s, because I love music, great music to my ears.
Wow.
There you go.
That person had no idea what Eggplant's about.
I guess we could also call this segment me doing like a David Lynch from Twin Peaks impersonation,
Yeah.
reading user reviews.
That is what that sounded like.
All right, so this next one already breaks the format slightly because only a few of the words are in all caps, but I feel like it still counts. There's also a lot of words where the first letter is capitalized, and I don't know why. And anytime there's the word for or two, they are using the number instead of the word. Also, the word someone is spelled S-O-M-E, number one. Just so you guys can get like a good visual idea of what this is like.
Was this review written before April 21st, 2016?
I didn't look at when it was posted.
I just thought maybe Prince had written it.
It's entirely possible. But anyway, here's the third and final review. I love this song so much. It was dedicated to me by the man who stole my heart. For someone who can throw a smile on a face drenched in tears and make it look real. This song and the memories it brings to my soul always produces a genuine and long-lasting smile in and on me. I love you to the moon and back, and I apologize for doing you wrong, for lying to you and hurting all of us.
I don't know. I feel like I just read something or heard something that was way too private.
Yeah, that had a confessional vibe mixed in.
You're not wrong, but they did post it as a public review, so here it is. They wanted this to be read.
I must say, phenomenally performed, especially in that last one, Sean.
Thank you. I think this is going to be a new hit segment. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. A+.
All right, cool.
I think that also captures the polarizing nature of Michael Franks, because the people who love him love it.
Yes.
And then a lot of people don't like it. So
he had this kind of weird thing where he obviously had a strong fan base, but like you said, he was still kind of an underground artist. You know, you had to be a smooth jazz head to really know about Michael Franks. Not everybody was hip to this dude.
I feel like you see him all the time in the dollar bin now.
Yes, definitely one of the easiest records we will talk about to find in a dollar bin.
I think that was, maybe if you and I didn't get into Sleeping Gypsy together, Sean, I might have just at one point put it on because I saw it all the time.
Yeah, and the artwork on that one is cool too.
Yeah, I think I was like, this has cool artwork. I gotta see what it sounds like. And that was probably about the time that I realized that I was coming out of this whole gotta listen to challenging music phase. And when stuff like that started to appeal to me.
I mean, sometimes it can be challenging to get into smooth stuff. You know, you can have different definitions of what challenging is. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of, there's probably even people listening right now that are like, this is crap.
Yeah, these guys have finally gone too far.
We hear you, listeners. We understand, but we're in a different place than you are right now.
Yeah, just hang in there. One day it's going to click. This is a funny thing about, while I've been listening to this episode, it's coincided exactly somehow with me getting into metal music for the first time in my life. I've like never listened to metal. So I'm like alternating between just the most brutal, fast metal seems to be what I like. And then like cutting back to Michael Franks to do some listening and research. So
Wouldn't have it
What
any
have you
other
been
way.
Listen to a little Blood Incantation.
some Blood Incantation, Full of Hell, who I'm going to see. And Panopticon is one I've been really digging. So getting into all those weirdos for the first time. But that's neither here nor there. Are you doing your normal segment, Sean?
Yeah, I got
You're
segments
gonna
for
recommend
days.
some? Yeah.
Two things I wanted to point out before that, though. My favorite description of Michael Franks that I read today was one review described him as a dorky Casanova with a Norton anthology under one arm,
Oh wow, that's spot on.
which I thought was absolutely beautiful. But then tied with that, we've talked a lot about these kind of witty, ironic, goofy lyrics. Did you guys think about how his narrative in lyrics is actually very similar to a lot of country music?
I mean, I could see that. It's sort of like the folk sort of structure.
Yeah, it's got that cleverness and that like wordplay that you hear from some folk and country artists.
Yeah.
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 Anyways, similar records that you can find on the cheap. There's a lot of artists we've talked about that are similar to this. As we've mentioned, there's the Smokey Robinson Quiet Storm record from 1975. We talked about one of the follow-up records that he did to that on a previous episode. Another record that Jeremy did a while ago, Roberta Flack's Feel Like Making Love from 1975, I feel like has some
that's a good
interesting
one.
comparisons, especially because Roberta had a little bit of that folk and pop influence mixed in there as well.
Yeah, and that sophisticated jazziness, and this is
Exactly.
when she sings a little softer on.
Exactly. Kenny Rankin, who we've mentioned, specifically his 1977 album, the Kenny Rankin album. The earlier stuff is a little more psych folk, and then he gets like more pop and more string laden as he goes on. And that album, particularly, I think is a really good comparison to the sounds you're hearing on here. And finally, an artist that we covered on the very first episode that I love to bring up as much as I can, Jimmy Spheris. His last record that is commercially available, Ports of the Heart from 1976, is actually quite similar to this. It goes more in that yacht rock pop, further away from the kind of weird Renaissance psychedelic stuff he was doing. And I feel like if he'd have lived longer, he could have potentially been a Quiet Storm star.
I recently watched one of his sister's documentaries. I watched The Decline of Western Civilization Part 3, which is the gutter punk, crust punk.
Oh, I haven't seen that one yet.
You can just watch it on YouTube. It's so strange now that I have like the Jimmy Spheris connection.
Yeah.
it was already weird enough that she was the Wayne's World director.
Yeah.
And now there's the Jimmy Spheris factor.
Interesting.
It's worth the watch, if you feel like going into that world for an hour and a half.
Wow, we are so deep in the weeds right now. Well, that's, I should say Michael Franks went on to record like 16 or 17 more studio albums. And as recently as 2018.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's still playing out a bit. So he's still with us, still kicking. If you're out on the West Coast, you can probably catch him at some point if you watch. And yeah, check out Michael Franks when you find him.
And
You
will
find him.
You will. And he's a very consistent artist. Like if this is something that appeals to you, the next few records he put out are very similar. The closer you get into the 80s, he gets a little more electronic, but even then it's really interesting and there's always some good songs.
Yeah, the lyricism remains strong. The production in some of the 80s stuff is like a little too much for me still yet, but you guys keep walking me hand in hand down that smooth jazz aisles and who knows, it might be my favorite stuff soon.
Yeah. Before you know it, you're going to be bopping to Passion Fruit from 1983.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you'll be rotating between the History of the Human Race by Blood Incantation. Is it the Hidden History of the Human Race?
Yeah, one of the
I
two.
don't-
Something similar to that. The one with the alien on the cover.
Yeah, that's been used by a bunch of people too. Like they are not the first band to use that for the album cover.
Yeah.
So it's been throwing people off when I posted it. They're like, "Wait a minute." So anyway, back into the weeds we go.
Yeah. Wow. Let's wrap it up. I'm going to leave you with Eggplant because I hate you all. Just kidding. But it feels dishonest to not have, as you mentioned, the innuendo, because that is it's pretty common in a lot of these,
Yeah,
including his hip popsicle toes, which is, I don't know. Feet just gross me out in general, so it just, ugh.
yeah. Pretty soon we're gonna feature the Toe Fat album, and Jeremy's gonna love the cover for that one.
No.
So yeah, we talked a lot about this already. So I don't know this track that we're gonna feature going out. So I don't know if there's much more to say.
Nope. It's side A, track 2. Thanks for listening. I'm Jeremy Ruggles.
I'm Sean Hartman.
And I am Peter Cook. This has been I'd Buy That for $1.
Don't forget to eat your eggplants raw with mayonnaise.
Whenever I explore the land of yin, I always take one on the chin. And now this lioness has almost made me tame. I can't pronounce her name, but eggplant is her game. The lady sticks to me like white on rice. She never cooks the same way twice. Maybe it's the mushrooms, maybe the tomatoes. I can't reveal her name, but eggplant is her game. When my baby cooks her eggplant, she don't read no book. She's got a Gioconda kind of dirty look. And my baby cooks her eggplant about 19 different ways. Sometimes I just have it raw with mayonnaise.